Welcome back to This is a Commander channel, where this is a Commander channel, and today I'm going to talk about Commander, tough rules, and cool interactions, episode 83. Today's episode is going to take a look at that wonderful part of Magic, which is the interaction of continuous effects, also known as the layers system. I've covered layers in multiple previous episodes, and today I will be going into timestamps, which is another aspect of layers that I have covered in the past, but today I will have a little extra plot twist to the scenario. Please do check out the earlier episodes that I've covered if you are not a little familiar with layers and their timestamp stuff, as this episode will assume some basic familiarity with them. Let's start off by looking at a very popular equipment, Colossus Hammer, which costs 1 mana to cast, but 8 mana to equip, and it says, equipped creature gets +10/+10, and loses flying. And then we have the lesser-known equipment, Zephyr Boots, which also costs 1 mana to cast, but then 2 mana to equip, and it says that equipped creature has flying. Got some other stuff, but we don't really care too much about that. So I was recently playing some games at my local game store, and some people that were next to me ran into this classic layers timestamp issue of, if I have both of these equipped onto one singular creature, does it fly or does it not? So if you're familiar with layers and timestamps, then you will know that both of these equipment have a continuous effect that is applying in the same ability layer, which means that they will be conflicting with each other, and that means that we will have to look at their timestamps in order to figure out which one is the winner. So if you were to equip the Zephyr Boots first, and then you later equip the Colossus Hammer to that same creature, the Boots has the older timestamp, which means that it will apply first, and then the Hammer will apply afterwards and override the Boots. So the creature would not have flying. But if you equipped the Hammer and then afterwards equipped the Boots, the creature would have flying. Now earlier I mentioned that I'd be adding a little twist to this situation that I encountered at my LGS, so let's do that now. You control Arden, Intrepid Archaeologist, which says, at the beginning of combat on your turn, you may attach any number of auras and equipment you control to target permanent or player. So clearly the question here is, what happens when you go from activating an equip ability and then activating another separate equip ability, which are two very clearly different game actions with obvious timestamps as to their order, to then doing something like Arden's ability that attaches both equipments in one singular game action. Does your equipped creature have flying, or does it not? Which continuous effect wins over the other? It is often said that in Magic, can't always beats out can, and while that is true for certain aspects of Magic, we do not apply that here in this particular scenario. Some of you may already know the answer, but for others that don't know exactly what will happen, I'll give you a hint. It's a pretty big hint. That will be, it's handled in a very similar way as to how the game handles multiple triggered abilities all triggering at the exact same time. Again, that's a pretty big hint. So let's just get straight into what the comprehensive rules has to say about how we handle this. In CR 613.7M, we will see that if two or more objects would receive a timestamp simultaneously, such as by entering a zone simultaneously or becoming attached simultaneously, their relative timestamps are determined in AppNap order, active player, non-active player. Objects controlled by the active player or owned by the active player if they have no controller have an earlier relative timestamp in the order of that player's choice, followed by each other player in turn order. So in this specific scenario, we have with Arden's ability resolving, the controller of that ability would get to decide their individual timestamps for each of the equipment's abilities. Obviously, the clear choice is to give the Hammer an older timestamp so that it applies first, and then the newer timestamp on the boots will apply after and give the creature flying. Anyhow, that's all I've got for today's episode. As always, I hope that all of you have found this video to be entertaining at least, and I hope that a few of you have even learned something about the crazy rules in this great game of Magic. Have a good one. Ta-ta!